How do I start a career in sales? It's not rocket science, guys. It's actually pretty easy. I believe the reason why most people can't seem to start this line of work is because they just overthink it. If you've been thinking about starting a career in sales, let me be the first to tell you that it is a life-changing career. I wouldn't be where I am today without this career. Hi guys, welcome to my journey to becoming a millionaire. My name is Chris Mo. If you don't know me, I do $1 to $2 million in construction sales, got a 6-figure income, some passive investments, and I have nothing to sell you. You see, I make these videos so I can document my life, so my grandchildren can know who I am, and hopefully this can inspire others to start their own journey as well. In today's video, I'm gonna be sharing with you my story on how I got started in sales. I'm all about being transparent, so I'm gonna go all the way back to how I first originally started. I'll make sure to include all the necessary things you need to go ahead and be successful in sales, because this is what worked for me. I'll even share with you, if I had to do it all over again, what I would do today. So make sure you stay to the end because that's where you get all the secrets. So without further ado, let's get started. So how did I start in sales? Well, once upon a time far way back 7 years ago, I started off as a sales associate at T-Mobile. You see, at the time, I was a college sophomore. I was working 3 jobs in order to pay my bills. I was a pizza delivery guy, I was a concierge, and I was a soccer referee. I was working 3 jobs, trying to barely even get by. I was working so much, it was ridiculous. You add school to the whole entire piece of the pie. My life was hectic at the time. Now, I soon realized that I couldn't keep doing this for such a long time. I needed to find something to go ahead and pay me more for less work. I did what everyone usually does. I went and started job hunting. I went on Indeed and I started looking up jobs, and I just came across an ad for T-Mobile. I applied, submitted my resume, got called in for an interview, and I landed the interview. And I still remember to this day on my first day of training where the sales director was up on front telling everyone, this is a life-changing career, this can change your life, you can make X and X amount of money. He even showed us how you can go ahead and buy your own luxury vehicle using a lease. I don't remember, but if you've ever been to a sales job, they sell you the dream. And that's what they did. They sold me the dream. I mean, what else was I going to do? It made sense. At the end of the day, I was going to be paid $15 an hour plus commission. Altogether, even if I got just a little bit more in sales, I was going to be wiping away with 3 jobs that I was once working and making more money. So going into my sales career at T-Mobile, I was first, like any job, I try to go in there just wanting to learn, just being quiet. So I was working out by like Santa Clarita, and they were just trying to expand the company at the time. So I went through a mix of managers, and altogether, I did what I do best, which is just learn my product, be me, and be knowledgeable, and really become what's called an expert. So I became an expert in my field, and ultimately, I didn't know what I know now, which is learning sales. But I learned early in my life that in order for you to get above in the world, you need to find people who are 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead. So there was once a sales manager who came into my store, and that guy was coming from a really good store, and he's been in the business for quite a long time. And we kind of grew fond of each other, and we had a whole little group, and he kind of taught me how to sell. He taught me what I needed to do to go ahead and reach my metrics and be one of the top sales rep. Well, give me a whole entire year, I literally got good at my craft. I became one of the top salesmen, where when the company got bought out, I actually was one of the top salesmen to go ahead and win a free trip to the Bahamas. That trip to the Bahamas changed my life, because when I was there, I saw all these rich people on vacation living the life. And from that moment on, I knew that this was the lifestyle that I wanted to go ahead and live. The problem was when I went back after my trip, things were a little bit different. My mindset changed. But everyone who was at my store didn't have the same mindset. They weren't all about being a better version of themselves, making more money. And if I really thought about it, I was always going to be capped working at T-Mobile. Why? Because I had no control over price. I had no control of what I could sell, to whom I could sell. I was limited because depending on the amount of people that were coming to my store, what I could sell, I was always going to be capped and not allowed to, reach my uncapped commissions like now I do. Most people don't realize that there's a lot of these companies that are really well known, but they're just franchises. Well, the T-Mobile that I was working at was a franchise. It was owned by a third party, and it had recently sold out to another third party. Now, this third party had different plans for the company. They basically wanted to cut out all the bad reps. Well, unfortunately for me, I didn't make that cut because everyone that got cut got a severance package. Because I was one of the top reps, I didn't get a severance package. And I quit literally a week after they fired almost half of the company. Yeah, it was crazy. And I went through a whole little struggle because I tried to create my own little business and it failed miserably and I was going in debt. At the time, I had to ask myself and be realistic with myself. I need to find another job. But I don't want to go back to an hourly wage or somewhere where I'm making barely anything. So I did what I did again. I went on Indeed and I thought to myself, okay, what am I good at? What is Chris good at? Well, Chris is good at sales. Chris is good at marketing. Chris is good at management and he's smart. He's good with money. So I have all these different avenues. But altogether, let's be realistic. I'm good at sales. So I started looking up sales jobs and I came across another ad and I applied to a bunch of sales jobs. And I remember I went to the first ad and I got an interview that next day and I went to the interview. Interview was for a home improvement industry sales job. Same thing, right? Just sales. And I thought I was going to walk in there and get the job because I was a top rep and things like that. Well, the interview process was a little bit different. I still remember it to this day, but I nailed it. I remember even the owner of the company saying that, hey, you know what? I like you. I like your attitude. I'm going to give you a shot. One of the things that was interesting during the whole interview process was the fact that he told me that one of the top reps there was making over $250,000 a year. I'm not like, that's crazy, that's insane. No, that is insane. Nobody makes that type of money. Like, is that even real? You're a liar. Blank poker face straight up told me yes. And I believe the guy. I mean, the guy had an I-8 in the parking lot. You don't think that guy made money? Or some people in this industry were making money? I'm like, what else do I have to lose? I mean, if anything, I'll just go back on the ads and start looking for another job, right? So I got the job, and honestly, I didn't know what I walked myself into. This career starting out was one of the hardest jobs I've ever had to do in my whole entire life. I went through hell trying to learn what I learned now. I did the same thing that I did at T-Mobile, which is just put my head down and really study and try to become an expert at everything and really get good. Out of my whole entire training class, only 3 people made it. 3 people stuck by. And by the end of 3 months, only 2 people stuck by. The crazy part was that this industry has a retention rate of less than 10% because not everyone can make it. And now I understand why, because training is never there in most companies, which is why most people fail in this industry because there's just never proper training. They just threw me out to the field and it was a sink or swim situation because ultimately if you can't sell, you're not going to get paid. There was a time in the beginning of my career in the home improvement industry where I was in a fluke. It was almost 3 weeks going by and I just couldn't get a sale. I was going through all the bad things that most people think about. This isn't for me. How am I going to pay bills? Just creating doubt in my head altogether. I was going broke at the same time. I couldn't afford to continue doing this. I was going to be bankrupt, if anything. So one day I told myself this, hey, look, if you don't make 3 sales in this week, you got to go. You have to go find another job because you got bills to pay. I don't know what happened, but on the last 3 days of the week, I got back to back sales. It was crazy. And from that day on, I knew that I was made for this. And once I thought I had it all figured out, 2020 hit. It was almost the end of 2019 and I was killing it. I was having really good months. I was making 4, 6. The most amount of money I made in a month was about like 6.5. But coming from a T-Mobile job and all these 3 other jobs, I was living the life, especially the fact that I was still in college. Life was crazy for me at the time. And then 2020 hit. 2020 hit Everyone didn't know what was going on with the world. This company just didn't know how to fluctuate. They didn't know how to modernize, get new appointments. So they started holding on to what they could. They started prioritizing the veterans who were there with them from the beginning, and they weren't giving anyone appointments. Nobody in the world knew what was going to happen. I was out of a job, basically. I had lost my job and I didn't know what I was going to be doing, but I knew that I wanted to stay in this industry. And I get a phone call one day. I get a phone call from one of like my closest friends now. He calls me and he tells me, hey, like, come work with me. And I still remember to this day, the phone call that I got. It was on my birthday, and he told me, come work with me. I came over here to another company, and I'm all like, no, like, I'm good, I'm happy. And right when like February, April, and things started shutting down, luckily I kept him as a close friend, and he still gave me the opportunity to go with him. And starting mid 2020 was when I moved over to a different company. Same industry, still doing the same thing, selling roofs. This time it was harder, because it was completely different company, a completely different pitch, completely different appointments. It was weird. And I didn't realize that at the time I wasn't trained properly. At the company I was originally starting this whole career with, they didn't know how to train. They didn't know how to train people properly. They just threw people into the water, and it was a sink or swim situation. And that's why most people don't think that sales careers are for them, because they don't ever get the proper training. I never got proper training. I got trained while I was out in the field, and I learned as I go. However, one of the things that I tell every young person is, if you want to be successful in any industry whatsoever, you have to find yourself a mentor. One of my closest friends, he took me in and he taught me how to sell. He taught me everything. We were at parks studying, I had notes studying, I studied like crazy. People don't realize the amount of work I had to go ahead and put in order to get to the level that I'm currently at. I studied my ass off every day. I studied more for this job and this career than I ever did for my 4-year degree. I studied in the morning when I woke up. I studied during the day. I studied when I was at the gym. I studied at night when I was asleep. I studied my ass off like no other, and it was crazy, because I tell people, if you're gonna join this industry, yes, it's really great money, it's amazing money, it can change your career, but you better be ready to work your ass off, because if you're not gonna make it. There's only a 10% retention rate. And honestly, if it wasn't for who I call a mentor, who taught me how to sell, I wouldn't be this good, because he would correct me. He would correct me when I made mistakes. He taught me the hard way. It wasn't the easiest mentor either, because honestly, he put me through hell, and there was even nights where I cried because I just didn't know if it was for me. And I went through a lot of BS, a lot of hardship to get to where I am today. But if it wasn't for me going through all that, I wouldn't have had the ability to jump to different other companies and prove to people that I know what I know, which is to sell. At one point, people have to realize that even though you make a lot of money, you have to be happy doing what you're doing. Now, in this industry, not every company is good. And there was a point in time where the company that we were at, it wasn't a place to be at anymore. And I knew that for myself. I learned now at my age, making 6 figures, making a lot of money, honestly does not mean crap if you're not happy. And I wasn't happy. So I left. I left the company with the savings that I had, and I'm like, hey, I can buy myself a couple months. I can sell my stocks, I can sell my investments, and buy myself time if I had to. So I tried doing my own little thing, and it didn't work. I took a big gamble. But I always knew that, hey, I have this skill. I can go anywhere. So I went back to doing what I was normally doing, which is selling roofs. This time I was working for a completely different company. And no, it's not this company, but we'll get to that right now. I went in there like I do to every job. Put your head down, study, prove to them that you are valuable and that you can go ahead and work. That's what I just did. First month, they had a whole month of training. Honestly, this company has one of the hands down best trainings if you want to start into this whole entire industry. And they kind of brought me back to scale because I was out of the game for a couple of months. One of the things that people learn as they get older is that being a W-2 employee and being a 1099, if you're living in LA and you're a W-2 employee, it's the worst thing that you can possibly do. I went in there and I was just focused on making sales and making money because I wasn't getting paid for the last couple of months. It was almost 5 months before I even had a paycheck. I was basically living off of my savings. I had to just sell and not worry about the whole W-2 and 1099. Altogether, 3 months into it, I start killing it. I literally sold $500,000 in just 3 months. And that's when I started to look at my paycheck. That's when I learned the rule of W-2 and 1099. If you're going to be a W-2 employee, just know that you're going to pay taxes like crazy. Now, I don't want to get into all that stuff, but being a 1099 employee and having my LLC, I'm allowed to deduct a lot of these things that we do in our normal job. It's almost like real estate agents, if anything. So I had to quit because if I really looked at the numbers, I paid more in taxes in the last 3 months than I did in the last 3 years, which was crazy. I quit and went back to my old company, which I thought they were going to go ahead and change and make things a little bit different, have better leads, have better service, but it was the same thing over and over again. I became unhappy again. I was making good money, don't get me wrong, and it was okay, but as we soon realized that once we pick a career, we're going to be in that career for a pretty long time. And you can always switch careers, right? But I love what I do for the time being, but I also want to enjoy what I do. Many people have heard that Florida just went through the biggest hurricane it has gone through in the last couple of years. And I've always heard there's another game to this whole entire roofing world. I did the economics. It barely rains in LA. It rains almost all the time in Florida. It's the same type of roofing, just a little bit different. If I could do it here, I can do it over there. And if I'm really good at what I say that I am, I can make a killing over there. Which brings me to where I'm at today. I decided to move to Florida and continue doing what I'm doing, which is selling roofs and construction to homeowners, but just in another state. It has made my life a lot more interesting. In just a month alone, I have gone through so many things that I never thought I was gonna go through. And I love it. I have been growing as an individual like crazy. My self-improvement has been going through the roof. I'm in the best shape of my life. I've met so many different people. I'm learning skills that I never once would have learned. I love it. And this is how we continue to grow as an individual, is by putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations so that we go ahead and become better. Which brings me to wearing this shirt in my video now, which is the same thing, which is selling home improvement to homeowners. Now it's a whole different ballgame and I'm still trying to get adjusted, but because I've gone through all that, I know that it's just a matter of time before I pick this up as well. I'm gonna do the same strategy, put my head down, educate myself and learn and just work my ass off. That was a long story and I briefed it up for a lot of you guys so you guys can get the true version of who I am and what I had to do to get to where I am currently, because this is all about being real. Now, if I had to start all over, this is what I would do. Literally everything I just told you. Everything that I'm currently doing right now, because technically everything that I just talked about you can still do to this day. It still applies, it's still current. I would go on Indeed, look up all the sales jobs on Indeed and start applying. I would tell anyone to get a sales job where it's an hourly, that way you don't have to jump through a lot of hoops like I did and go through a commission only pay scale right off the bat, because it can be scary and it could drown you if you don't know how to sell. Once you figure out if sales is for you, then you can go ahead and upgrade to a commission pay only scale. Now this is gonna allow you to have an uncapped commission, which can allow you to have a 6-figure income. Or you can do what a lot of people do, which is just go straight into a commission only pay scale and just roll the dice with it. From there, you wanna become an expert. Practice, 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 practice. Practice until you can't get it wrong anymore. Become an expert. You have to know your stuff, because people only buy from people who they like and they trust. Next, you want to find a mentor. Once you're willing to prove that you're able to do whatever it takes to get to their level, a mentor usually finds you. You also want to find a company that has the same values as you, because not all companies are the same. Not all companies are good. There's some companies who let their reps do whatever they want and they could care less. And there's some companies who hold people really accountable, in a mixture of both. You have to find a company that has the same values as yourself. That way you guys are both aligned. And continue to learn, because the more you learn, the more you earn. I realized soon in my career that in your sales career, it has a lot to tie in to your personal development. Let me explain. You have to work on yourself just as much as you have to work to become a better salesman, because they both go hand in hand. Getting started in sales isn't hard. Staying in sales is hard. Staying motivated when sales aren't coming in is hard. Becoming an expert is hard, but we all know that the best things in life are hard. You just gotta stick with it, because if it was easy, everyone would do it. Besides that, that's it guys. Hopefully you found some value in this video. You hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button, and this encouraged a lot of people to start looking at sales careers as an option. because it is a life-changing experience for a lot of people. So if you want to know more about me, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll go ahead and see you guys next time.